Hi everyone and welcome to the NewTek webinar with AV Magazine. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to show you how to get up and running fast for almost any event, whether that's a presentation, staged event, even town hall style meetings, while simultaneously live streaming and recording in 4K. At NewTek we believe the future of video production lies squarely within computers, software and networks. So today we're going to use just that to deliver rich dynamic content all through NDI, our software-defined AV over IP protocol, and the latest addition to our TriCaster family, the TriCaster Mini. But first, what is NDI? NDI stands for Network Device Interface, and it's the result of nearly 12 years of development in video and audio over IP, or Internet Protocol. Through AV over IP, you can reduce costs, improve efficiency, and simplify your infrastructure. We designed NDI to work on almost any network, whether that's big or small. And to do this, we set out to ensure that it would work with the one thing that every computer has these days, gigabit Ethernet. So the only cables you're going to need are these. Using Cat6 Ethernet, a single cable can be run up to 90 meters, or even further if optical is used. NDI is compressed, which means that we can send and receive many streams of video and audio over a single cable in both directions. And NDI is also fast. Using modern computing, we can bring video into the network in as little as one frame. Here in the UK, that's around a 25th of a second. The typical delay across an NDI network can be as little as 3 frames in and out, but this will then vary depending on other hardware components outside of the network. NDI can be found in software and hardware, including PTZ cameras and entry points. This means that we can bring content in from almost anywhere, even iPhone. We can also deliver anywhere with software-based live production systems and hardware-based endpoints, including streaming encoders and then video wall processors from third parties. NDI has also been purposely designed to handle any resolution, any frame rate and any color space, which means that investing in an NDI environment will allow you to easily and quickly adapt as standards and demands change over time without replacing your infrastructure. And the best bit about NDI is that it's as automated or as rigid as you want it to be. Through NDI's auto discovery, your AV teams and staff don't need to be experts in networks to get up and running quickly within a software-defined audio-video over IP system. NDI devices can also be shared with multiple endpoints simultaneously without the need for heavier network architectures such as multicast, although you can enable multicast on any NDI device when certain scales of deployment are required. With NDI, we use human naming at the front end and simple interfaces to deliver true self-service AV. So now you know a little bit more about NDI, let's look at just how quick and easy this is. For today's webinar, we're going to be using the following: 2 Windows laptops, NDI software tools, a NewTek NDI PTZ camera, a video camera with an NDI converter, and our new TriCaster Mini. Now, I've all been faced with the joys of connecting laptops to AV infrastructure. The great news is we can do this in a really simple way with NDI. I've got 2 computers here. One is for my presentation and the other is connected to my display. Now, a small bit of setup is required. We're going to need a couple of applications to get this going, and the good news is you can get those free of charge from www.ndi.tv, where you can download for PC and Mac. Next up, we're going to connect both computers to a router. I'm using a small network DHCP router for this demo, but in reality you can use almost any commercial off-the-shelf gigabit Ethernet switch or above. However, we would always recommend a major brand managed switch wherever possible as well, as this provides the greatest visibility and control for any potential troubleshooting down the line. Now, there's one more small step that we're going to need to do after this. We need to ensure that these computers are set to private networks. Our auto discovery uses MDNS, so we need to operate within a trusted network environment. For you Mac users out there, we don't need to worry about this step. And if you don't want to use MDNS on your network, we both offer a discovery server and access manager for manual connectivity. Within Windows, you simply need to change the network status from public to private in order for this to take place, just as I'm doing here. Now that's done on the presenter's laptop, we can go in and we can run our scan converter. This is going to appear in the bottom right dock under Windows. Scan Converter will automatically turn what's on my GPU and display into an NDI source, along with my mic and webcam if I want to do so too. On the receiving display, we're going to run Studio Monitor. This is our free software-defined endpoint for displaying and even controlling NDI sources. To use Studio Monitor, we click in the corner or right-click, and straight away we can see my laptop and webcam are now available as sources from Scan Converter into Studio Monitor on my second computer, or using human names, not IP addresses. It's really this fast. We can even do picture-in-picture easily, or overlay alpha to show graphics on certain displays. A perfect application is digital signage. Studio Monitor offers much more, including Web GUI remote control, multiple instances for a software-based multi-viewer, inbuilt recording, and so on. But one new feature which benefits AV environments particularly is the ability to gang Studio Monitor displays, using one as a master and relaying to others through the NDI network in a master and slave configuration, providing simple distribution across multiple screens for digital signage or audience overflow purposes. Rather than purely relying on software, you can also use hardware entry points like our Spark range to convert any HDMI input into an NDI source. The same thing applies for decoding. There are with NDI to HDMI or NDI to SDI decoders, such as those from our friends at BirdDog and Magiwell. Our free NDI tools also include other applications for sending test patterns, limiting access through groups, and also free plugins for Adobe Creative Cloud. Now, for you Skype users out there, Microsoft has now also embedded NDI into every copy of Skype for desktop. This means you can send any NDI feed direct into your Skype calls, replacing a webcam and audio with full production if you wanted to. Using our virtual input application, you can integrate other video over IP and collaborative systems into your NDI AV solution, connecting NDI feeds to third-party systems such as GoToMeeting, Skype for Business, Zoom and Google Hangouts, and many more. But now you've seen how fast it is to get your content from A to B, what about doing something a lot more creative? Well, that's where our TriCaster and VMC systems come in. Our TriCaster and VMC systems are where we bring everything together from the network to create rich, dynamic content, simultaneously recording, distributing, and delivering your show wherever it needs to go. The new TriCaster Mini is our third generation Mini, and we've changed the game entirely as it's our first system with no baseband connectivity, focusing instead on IP only with direct NDI inputs and outputs. The TriCaster Mini is a full 4K P50 and 4K P60 enabled system with up to 8 NDI inputs. Plus, like our larger systems, it supports analog, Dante and AES-67 audio support. Despite its ultra-compact size, the TriCaster Mini is incredibly powerful, as you'll see shortly. But first up, let's take a look at those direct NDI inputs in action. Round the back of this little guy here, we've got these 4 direct inputs with power over Ethernet and DHCP, alongside standard PC connections and support for up to 4 displays or 2 in 4K mode. There are also 2 additional Ethernet ports on the back for connecting to the internet, shared storage like our NRS range, your corporate network, or if you wanted to use the Mini as a flyaway system, you could connect it back to your NDI network when you get back to base. Because the TriCaster Mini has these direct inputs, we can ditch the switch for now, and I'm going to plug my presenter laptop running Scan Converter directly into the first of these inputs. The Mini will provide DHCP to my laptop, ensuring I don't need to provide an IP address manually. Next up, I'm going to connect up our NDI PT-Z1 camera. Again, the camera will receive DHCP from the TriCaster Mini, but in this case it will also receive power as well, meaning that over this one single cable we're getting power, video and control. And finally, I'm going to connect my older HDMI camera here over HDMI to an HDMI to NDI Mini converter. Again, it will receive DHCP and power direct from the Mini. Now, these Mini converters are not used only just for cameras, but they could be used for guest presenters' own laptops as meeting room plug-in points. They'll even work with games consoles for esports capture applications, as long as you have HDCP disabled. Now let's take a look at the TriCaster user interface. All TriCasters run on Windows 10 in the background, but our software takes over, so this is all you're going to see day to day. We get to choose a format. In this case, we're going to work with 4K P60, but you could work in non-broadcast aspect ratios, such as square or portrait, but we also support high definition, standard definition, NTSC and PAL frame rates. We're going to give our session a name. In this case, I'm going to call it TriCaster. We then hit Start Session, and then we go live. We are now entering our session interface and can get ready for production. The TriCaster will start creating the file structure for this session now in the background. While it's doing that, it's worth pointing out that everything we do in here will be remembered and saved as we exit, so we can return to our system where we left it. All our systems have the ability to template from existing sessions too, for those regular shows or productions that reuse setups and content. Now we're in the user interface, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of what we've got here. This is the main interface. It's been designed to fold away depending on what it is you want to do. At the top we have our settings. Here is a configurable multi-viewer all based on viewports. With a right click, any window can view anything on the system, even a clock. Then we have a program viewport. This shows what's on air. And then a preview viewport, what's queued up next. Along the bottom here, we have our switcher row, where we can select what's on air, our program, and what's coming up next, our preview. And we can then cut, fade, and use animated transitions from within the window down here. There is also a virtual T-bar for transitioning between the two program and preview settings. Lastly, we have our downstream keys, where we can overlay graphics, titles, or even create picture-in-picture shots. And at the very bottom of the screen, we have some additional tabs. These give you access to a media player on the left, or DDR, an inbuilt sound player for music and audio. On the right-hand side, we give you a second media player, or DDR, and buffers. Buffers are where you can store animated graphics and still images like logos that you want to use often and quickly. In the middle lives a full audio mixer with graphic equalizers. And finally, around the middle area of the user interface, we have our mix effects. And this is where we can get seriously creative with compositing sources, effects like picture-in-picture, and virtual studios. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go into all the awesome things the Mini can do today, but let's show you what we can do in a very short amount of time. We're going to use our simple Express mode for this, which is activated on the right-hand side tab here. Express mode is simplified interface optimized for touch-based control with touchscreen displays. We can then fold away the rest of the user interface for the time being. First up, we're going to connect the laptop that we joined up earlier on. We go up to input 1, and from the pull-down list, we can select our laptop display. Straight away, we can now start moving through PowerPoint slides as part of our live production. As simple as that. Next up, I'm going to join a webcam. I go up to input number 2, and I'm going to go down to my list and select the webcam that's here in front of me. So hello. And then I'm now going to select one of our PTZ cameras on input number 3. I go down to the list, I select the camera, and straight away there is a PTZ camera in front of me. On the next input, I'm going to select another camera and go down to NDI PTZ run and select our second camera. Once PTZ cameras are connected up over NDI, the TriCaster or Studio Monitor applications will know straight away that these are controllable devices, and we can take control from within the user interface, even recalling and triggering presets if we want to do so. And so there we have it, a few sources connected in no time at all, and we've still got another 4 inputs to use. Finally, the TriCaster Mini includes our NDI HX camera app for iOS devices, meaning any iPhone or iPad can operate as a Wi-Fi camera, even at 4K if your sensor supports it. Now we have all these sources coming in, you'll notice that not everything here is 4K. Our TriCaster and VMC systems will up, down and cross-convert content from the network, so you can focus on telling your story rather than being concerned about converting between standards or different connector types. Now we've got our sources in, let's see what else we can do. We can now switch between our different sources with a single click, whether that's a crossfade or something more interesting such as an animated wipe. We give you the tools to create your own wipes within the system. We can overlay graphics from within buffers. Our live graphics, which is part of the Premium Access subscription for TriCaster, allows us to import Adobe After Effects files to create rich graphics within our production systems, such as lower thirds or opening titles and closing credits. Within those titles, we also give you the ability to use a character generator, which can be typed into, or we can type to metadata within the system, such as inputs or external data sources. We can also now start to really show off using our mix effects and show different effects of compositing sources within the system. Up here in Mix Effect 1, I've created a picture-in-picture of my PTZ and my PowerPoint. But I can also create different presets within these as well. By going up to the comps, I can now animate between my full screen presenter and the presenter on PowerPoint as picture-in-picture. We can rearrange and relay these as much as we want within the system. Now, you'll also have noticed by now that I'm here in a green screen studio down in London. A great feature of the Mini is that all of our TriCasters and VMC support chroma key on every single input, even in 4K mode. So let's now cut to our green screen source on input number 3. I can now go into the input settings, and from there I can enable a key striking out the background, which I can now replace with anything. Over here on Mix Effect number 2 is another one that I created earlier on, and you can see that I've now composited myself over the top of my PowerPoint. And yet again, I can go in and I can reposition myself if I want to within that frame, including zoom and scale controls, depending on the look and effect that I want to go to. I also can animate between different composite layouts to move myself around within the frame if I so wish. Now, the TriCaster Mini also includes virtual sets. So on Mix Effect number 3 now, I've recreated the virtual set that you saw earlier on. We can zoom in and out from within these virtual sets with a virtual camera, which again we can also create different virtual camera moves. And you can see here that I've recreated the layout that I did earlier on. Now, while we're getting creative and telling this story, we're able to simultaneously record and live stream to all of our major CDNs or content delivery networks. The TriCaster Mini features 2 different streaming encoders which are accessible at the top here. These can support almost any frame rate or any resolution up to the one that your session is set to. In this case, we could stream up to 4K. Once these streaming encoders are set, we can then go out to all of the major CDNs simultaneously. YouTube or Ustream, we can go out to LiveView or even record on our own internal networks. We can even set up a secondary encoder to go out to Facebook Live if we wanted to do so. Once these are set with a single click at the top of the user interface, we can start streaming with confidence. But we can also simultaneously record our program output. In 4K mode, we have a single recording channel for our program out, but we can also record up to 4 other inputs individually as well. So let's stop the recording here, and I'm going to go up to input 2 and enable the capture settings for recording of that input. But also over on input 3, I'm not only going to enable my record settings, but I'm also going to enable instant replay. So now when I start recording, I'm recording our program and anything we do within that program, including the movement within our virtual set and bringing up the animated graphics. But I'm also now recording input number 2 as a backup and input number 3 with an instant replay icon below it. Now, if I'm going to wave on camera here, if I just hit the instant replay button at the bottom now, that is now immediately loaded into my DDR and I get an instant replay of that recording. With our plugin for Adobe Premiere, which is included with the free NDI tools I mentioned earlier on, you can bring all of these recordings and any NDI recordings from across your network and edit your live production later on. If a source is keyed against a green screen like I'm doing today, we will record that key as well, saving you tons of time in post-production editing. Now, for those of you who want to go even further with NDI, we offer our VMC system. A 44 NDI input media hub. All of the features of TriCaster Mini, but bigger and bolder again. The VMC is the perfect centralized platform for building AV environments that can effortlessly pivot from self-service operation to a full live production system, and all contained within a FreeRU chassis. Through an advanced macro engine, you can create shortcuts for any combination of functions on the system, and all just a key press away. Paired with VMC's inbuilt NDI output matrix, NDI sources can be sent to any receivers with just the click of a live panel button, completely independent of production. When combined with NDI supporting video wall processors like Watchout, you can drive complex presentations and events simply and fast at any scale, including your screens on stage. Our macro engine can also fire commands externally, controlling AV solutions such as Crestron and QSC audio processors. But now for one last thing. Our webinar today, it's all been driven through our live story creator, and I've run this show all on my own. It all started as a Word document, which you can now see here on screen. Within that Word document, I've written my script, and on the right-hand side, I've provided inserted comments, just as you would annotate any other type of Word document. But these comments are just a little bit special. To drive this webinar, I've used our VMC1 system, as this is the very first TriCaster Mini here in the UK and we wanted to show it to you fully. But let's take today's script now and load that into the Mini UI. We go down to the Automation tab at the bottom of the system, we hit the plus icon, and here is my AV Magazine webinar script version 12. By hitting open, the TriCaster will now read the script and will simultaneously read any comments and annotations that I've made in the system. Those comments are then highlighted in blue, and as we roll through the script, you'll see that it starts recording, it will fire an opening graphic, and then we'll start generating the teleprompter simultaneously on the screen. We can do various different things within the teleprompter, including adjusting your font size, changing the font for something that's easier to read, and this teleprompter is actually available over the network as an NDI source. When we update the script on the network, the system will know that the script has been changed by production, and we can simply hit refresh to change the script. Live Story Creator is one of the most powerful tools we've added yet, making it easier than ever to tell your story simply. Thank you for watching, and we'll now start the Q&A.